So last night I won a prize. I'm really excited. I went to this wine tasting. One of my high school friends every year has this wine tasting. And couples show up and everybody brings a bottle of wine and they put the wine in a brown bag so you can't see what it is. And then everybody rates the wines. And I went with my brother, right? My brother's married, but we went together as, quote, the couple because it was pairs. So out of 18 wines, my wine won. And my wine came from one of my YouTube friends. Last year when I did that road trip, I stopped by to see one of my YouTube friends, and that bottle of wine won. That was awesome. I was so excited. I got a gift certificate for, guess what? A package store. I'm not really a drinker, but hey, it was fun. So one thing at this wine tasting was, it was, 18 yuppie couples, of course, and my brother and I. So these yuppie couples were there, and later in the night, as people had tasted more than 18 wines, people start talking kind of loosely. And some people were talking about investing. So the people there were yuppies. They were not like, pro traders, right? They had, a lot of people there were talking about small businesses. A lot of people there, several couples, had nest eggs, and they're talking about like having a business, like a convenience store on the side, or even the dream was quitting their corporate job and starting a small business, like, I don't know, rental housing, all these, the ideas they're coming up with were kind of like the run-of-the-mill things, but they're all looking for some kind of small business, and some of them were talking about the successes of people they know who had small businesses. Like this one guy was telling me how this 28 kid was a multimillionaire because he opened up some kind of some kind of corporate housing, and he was saying, "Wow, it was something, it was an idea that was not too crazy, but it worked." And I said, well, what was his in? How was he able to do that? He goes, well, his father owns someone in his family was very high up in Mohegan Sun, which is a big casino in Connecticut. And I said, well, what that means is that he had contacts, right? His father could tell him, plumbers, electricians, contractors, all these things, right? He didn't go in from scratch. He had all these contacts and networks. When when these guys are they're wine tasting, they're wine tasting with the very, very rich, and I'm wine tasting with professionals, but who don't have millions and millions of cash lying around. So it's kind of like, yes, the guy did have a good idea and he worked hard, but he didn't go in there cold, right? He just didn't say, oh, I'm going to do this business. I got to find plumbers, I've got to find electricians, I've got to find building contractors, I've got to find accountants, I've got to find lawyers. Well, this guy's father had all that already, and he just was able to piggyback off of his father's success. Of course, he worked hard too. But what I'm saying is that, when you want to start something, you have to have all these things going on. Anyhow, so on the one hand, people want to talk about having like a small business. On the other hand, some people were talking about investments. Like one guy there was saying that, hey, he was considering buying physical gold 4 months ago, but he didn't. And I was explaining to him, what technical analysis says, that in the next 2 years, you could have sideways movement or even down movement, right? And I said, of course, I can't read the future, and technical analysis isn't 100%. So I'm just saying, I think it was as a, that it might go down to 1100 in the next 2 years, or I'm just saying, I was telling him that there's events, and that if you want to buy, go ahead and buy, but just realize that for the next 2 years, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And of course, there are some traders who watch me who say it's a get-poor scheme. I'm going to stay out of that debate there because I can't see the future. But I just want to alert them, say, hey, go, look at the technical analysis thing and whatever. And then another guy, he was, when we were talking, he came over and said, I heard you guys talking about metals. He's like, palladium. He's like, I got palladium. You guys should all buy palladium. He's giving me, I'm like, uh-oh. When people who had a lot of wine at these events start talking about their investments, it's like, that's probably as retail as it gets. And of course, the guy was there with his wife, and his wife was like, I don't know about these investments. He does this stuff, and I don't touch it. I don't know. She's like kind of like skeptical, like half rolling his eyes. He was really excited about palladium. I'm thinking, oh no, at this Metals and Minerals conference, they were talking palladium. And then these metals had a bigger hit than, gold and silver recently. And of course, there wasn't any strike, right? There wasn't any strike in South Africa to cause the metals to go way up. And, I'm not an expert. Lizard Fuel did a video showing how platinum is at resistance right now. He goes, and if it breaks that it usually has a big fall down, like we saw in gold and silver recently. But it could be a bottoming out process because, at this wine tasting, I was saying, hey, I don't know what Bernanke's going to do. I can't tell you the future. But just realize that, I was also explained to the one couple about how the sentiment, he says, when you see stuff in the newspaper and people are talking about it, like, the retail investor that's usually a warning sign. Saying it's not destiny, because sometimes people talk about stuff like the internet stocks and they went up for 2 more years. So I'm saying, hey, just don't take investment advice at a wine tasting is what I was telling them. But I was looking at some observations. So this guy who was talking about platinum, pretty friendly guy, older than me by, maybe 15, 20 years. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But he was also so excited that he was actually writing down his stocks on pieces of paper and giving them out to people, saying, hey, go home and look at this. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's total retail activity there, right? I'm not saying he did wrong. Like, he was really excited about, like Alcoa, aluminum. He was really excited about base metals. And, when I was asking, like, what's your basis for this, right? He didn't have, like, there are some people on my channel, like Airline Trading, Robbie G, all the people who are loved and also heavily hated by some people on the channel, that when they tell me something, they got a basis behind it, right? You might think they're wrong, but they're giving you like thorough analysis, right? Like Airline Trading, he gives you thorough analysis on what he's saying. He's just not pulling stuff out of the air. And he's been right enough in the last couple of years. I say, hey, this guy, I've been following these guys. So someone in a comment said, when in a previous video I was kind of saying, hey, Cosmos Gatos got some good calls and whatever, and someone said, well, no, he didn't. But that kind of discussion, right? All these calls are on the internet for the last 4 or 5 years. Like these people who I talk about, right? You can follow them, and I've been following them. So there's really no debate when it comes to someone's track record, because if it's online, you can look it up yourself. And if you're really concerned about who's right and who's wrong, that's kind of your task. Don't trust me who's right and wrong. You look at the people, right? You look at their history about whether they're right or wrong. And if there's no history, then well, you can't really say anything. But if there's a history, you can kind of see. And of course, I've been wrong in the past. And the point of my channel is not to be a predictive channel. I'm not trying to the future. I'm trying to point out what people are saying. I'm trying to point out ideas. I'm trying to find observations. So thanks for watching, and I'll end off with, hope you learned something.